Today we're diving into the history books to explore the top 10 rocket launches that went horribly wrong. From catastrophic failures to jaw-dropping mishaps, get ready to embark on a journey through the highs and lows of space exploration. But beware, this countdown is not for the faint-hearted. So buckle up, space enthusiasts, as we blast off into a whirlwind of rocket launch disasters that changed the course of history. Let's ignite the engines and delve into the explosive tales of interstellar misfortune. Number 10. In 1997, a group of Japanese space enthusiasts decided they wanted to build a rocket. Interstellar Technologies, or IST, was born. Their mission was to provide the cheapest means for launching satellites into orbit. They also aspired to launch a rocket into orbit and be the first Japanese business to do so. On June 30th, 2018, their dream was finally going to come true. They started the countdown after positioning their 10-meter Momo-2 rocket on the launch site. They had already done this song and dance once before. The first launch was only a partial success. This time, they'd get it right or not. More smoke rose than the rocket ever could. Given that the rocket lost all thrust after takeoff, IST President Takahiro Inagawa stated that a main engine issue was most likely the cause of the mishap. That sounds about right. It had been a rough road leading to the Momo-2 failure. In July 2017, IST lost contact with the Momo-1 rocket due to a communications failure. Then, in April 2018, a nitrogen leak caused the initial Momo-2 rollout to be postponed. In 2019, IST finally experienced good fortune. They successfully sent the Momo-3 68 miles into space, officially becoming the first private Japanese company to do so. See, dreams can come true. Number 9. When Soviet pilot Yuri Gagarin became the first person to reach orbit in 1961, the space race got off. President Kennedy of the United States started pouring a ton of cash into space exploration. The unmanned Atlas Centaur project was funded in large part by those funds. When the first Centaur landed at the Cape Canaveral launch pad in October 1961, it was left there for 7 months due to many technical issues, including a serious hydrogen fuel leak. In May 1962, the Centaur was finally prepared for launch, but an erroneous insulating panel caused the entire project to get out of control. For reference, Neil Armstrong was 7 years away from landing on the moon. Still, watching the Centaur explode didn't make anyone too excited. The Centaur program didn't have a stellar history either. It was intended to be the first launch vehicle in history to use a liquid hydrogen fuel source for its stage. This was the 5th test flight to fail out of the 7 that were conducted. The 8th mission ultimately proved successful. A legislative review at the time deemed the Centaur program's overall management to be weak. Wernher von Braun wished to call off the entire project. As of right now, NASA views the Centaur as America's space workhorse. Number 8. The French firm Ariane Space constructs and manages the heavy-lift Ariane 5 rocket spacecraft. The Ariane 5 is often referred to as the global standard for heavy-lift launchers. It has the capacity to transport about 20 metric tons into low Earth orbit and 10 metric tons into geostationary transfer orbit, GTO. On June 4, 1996, the first Ariane 5 flight took off. Regretfully, things did not turn out quite as expected. It was destroyed in 37 seconds after taking off from a launch pad in French Guiana.
Tous les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Now let's unpack what happened here. The internal reference system tells the Ariane 5 whether it's pointing up or down. Would you think that the rocket's explosion was caused by a computer glitch in the inertial reference system? A $370 million launch was destroyed by that little error, which also caused a 4-year delay in future research. Now let's unpack what happened here. The internal reference system tells the Ariane 5 whether it's pointing up or down. This is often referred to as the horizontal bias of the rocket. Billions of data points are used to maintain the rocket's alignment. They did, however, attempt to compress all that info into a 16-bit area. The rocket was forced to tilt 90 degrees as a result of the engines overcorrecting. The whole thing was destroyed by the aerodynamic forces. Number 7. The International Space Station needs supplies in late October 2014. NASA used to just launch a rocket up there to replenish the station, but in 2011 they decided to terminate the Space Shuttle program. These days, they hire firms to manage the resupply operations. Orbital Sciences is the name of one of such businesses. Their task was to pilot the Antares rocket, which was unmanned, up to the station. This journey might already be accomplished by the 2-stage rocket. Its third journey to the space station, scheduled for October 28th, would have carried a payload of over 5,000 pounds of supplies and equipment. The Antares rocket experienced a catastrophic failure following what Mission Control described as a flawless countdown.
T-minus 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of Antares, the tour-free mission that brings Cygnus on its third CRS mission to the ISS. Got main engines at 108%.
Avionics power nominal.
Mission Control was stunned into silence by the failure. When the rocket detonates in mid-air, what do you even say? Fortunately, there was no risk of a food or supply shortage for the astronauts. The explosion caused no injuries to anyone. Both the facilities and the rocket itself clearly suffered serious damage. Orbital's executive vice president, Frank Culbertson, claims that something went wrong right away upon launch. When a safety officer gave the rocket the order to self-destruct, everything blasted up. After NASA ended its space shuttle program, it signed deals with 2 private companies. Orbital got $1.9 billion to embark on 8 resupply missions. Elon Musk's SpaceX got $1.6 billion to fly 12 missions. Number 6. The former Soviet Union developed a family of surface-to-air missiles known as the S300 series. They first surfaced in the 1970s and gained popularity in the former Soviet Union, Russia, and other Eastern Bloc nations. Defense missiles known as S300s are designed to bring down aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles, and approaching assault weaponry. Russia therefore regularly tests these defense systems to make sure they are functional. One such test was carried out by the Russians on May 24, 2011. The first launch proceeded quite well, but not so much the second. That missile was doomed from the start. While the second one went completely out of control, the first one soared off in a lovely arc. Just to be clear, S300 missiles aren't meant to spiral through the atmosphere. Things get a little scary when it looks like the rocket is coming back toward them. It takes 20 terrifying seconds to fly through the air before exploding. The Center for Strategic and International Studies states that the typical S300's maximum range is around 93 miles. The weight of the warhead itself ranges from 293 to 315 pounds. An automated navigation system that locks onto approaching targets is installed in each. These missiles are popular with China, Venezuela, Iran, and Egypt, according to the Kremlin. A few NATO nations, including Greece, Slovakia, and Bulgaria, also have some. Number 5. A large crowd was held on April 20, 2023, next to the SpaceX Starbase in Boca Chica, Texas. They arrived to witness the 40-story Starship rocket space launch. SpaceX claims that Starship is the most potent launch system ever created. When perfected, it will be capable of transporting 100 individuals on extended interplanetary journeys. However, testing Starship is the only way to be sure it's secure. Elon is going to exhaust a number of prototypes before creating a functional one. The greatest advancement they had made up until that point came on April 20th, 2023. It had a fantastic start.
To date.
SpaceX claims that anything that happened beyond the launch pad was unknown. The rocket kept getting faster and faster, quickly blowing past 300 miles per hour. As it approaches 2.5 miles, or roughly 13,000 feet, it banks to the right. Then, at almost 600 miles per hour, it crashes through the region of highest atmospheric pressure, which is located at about 26,000 feet. This is where things start to go wrong. As you can see, a few of the engines stopped working. The thrust was enough to punch through the atmosphere and reach the boundaries of space. But it was during stage separation that things went horribly wrong. The first stage should have separated at the 3-minute mark. Starship would have entered space from there thanks to 9 engines in the secondary stage. Instead, the rocket began tumbling for a long, harrowing minute.
Yeah, it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
And there, as you saw, as we promised, an exciting end to the Starship inaugural integrated. Starship didn't explode by accident. SpaceX tweeted afterward that the flight termination system, basically a self-destruct button, kicked in to prevent further danger. Even though it was back to the drawing board, the failed launch was extremely helpful. Number 4. In the heat of the space race between the US and the Soviet Union, the Soviets one-upped the Americans when they launched Sputnik in October 1957. This made the Americans scramble to launch their satellite as soon as possible. On December 6th of the same year, in response to Sputnik, the US launched Vanguard TV3. But as millennials today would describe it, the launch was a huge #epic fail.
Promptly announced them. The first and most spectacular of these was Vanguard at the end of 1957. There were other Vanguard failures. All achieved takeoff, but trouble occurred either in the second or third stages.
It only rose 4 feet into the air before falling back into the pad and blowing to Kingdom Come. Here's the kicker. The satellite still transmitted a signal as though in orbit even though it was lying stationary on the Florida coast. The media called the failed attempt various names, from Flopnik to Kaputnik. The Vanguard satellite is currently on display at the Smithsonian Institution to serve as a cautionary tale to young students of the dangers of poor planning. Number 3. On February 15, 1996, the Long March 3B was set to launch carrying an Intelsat 708 communication satellite. The rocket took off from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center, located in southwestern China. During the first 2 seconds, everything was fine, until it wasn't. As you can see, that rocket will undoubtedly fail a breathalyzer test, crashing 1,850 meters away from the launch pad. The Xinhua news agency reported that the incident had caused 6 deaths and 57 wounded in a nearby village. Officials initially blamed the failure on an unexpected gust of wind, to which the wind pleaded not guilty. As it turned out, the accident was caused by an anomaly in the flight altitude, which appeared just 2 seconds after takeoff. Number 2. When they said fire it up, this was not what Orbital Sciences had in mind. On October 29, 2014, an Antares rocket was supposed to be the company's 3rd resupply mission to the International Space Station, carrying 5,000 pounds of supplies. However, just 14 seconds after it launched, the rocket went up in smoke. too bad. The ISS astronauts must have been looking forward to their next batch of dehydrated medium-rare steak served in a tube. Luckily, no one was harmed by the explosion, and the 6 astronauts aboard the ISS still had a few months' worth of supplies to tide them over. I guess for the time being, they just had to settle for the leftover avocado toast in paste form. Number 1. Yup, as its name suggests, this rocket was meant to be part of the US Air Force Global Positioning System, or GPS. It was estimated to have cost $40 million, but it only took 13 seconds for all that money to turn to dust.
Gotta love America's space program. It's the best in the world. Well, most of the time.
We have had an anomaly. We just had an anomaly of the Delta II launch vehicle.
On January 17, 1997, the IIR-1 took off from Cape Canaveral. However, just 13 seconds later, the flight termination system was activated because of a crack in the rocket motor, causing it to explode. Although nobody was killed by the crash, store windows from 10 miles away got damaged by the explosion. That's how strong it was. Ironically, the GPS rocket didn't arrive at its destination.